bottom of the sole of his foot. He's got cuts on the bottom of his feet and a big bruise on the bottom of his foot. I ask you, what happened to Lee Oswald? Well, they put newspapers over the windows there where they were interrogating him. They were open. They put newspapers so people couldn't look in. But worse, we had secret agent, this is special agent, I should say, for the FBI. Vincent Drain is the one who took the evidence and accompanied it up to the FBI labs. And as you know, the FBI found no fingerprints of any kind. But the Dallas police later would, after Lee's dead and after they ink his hands and everything over the morgue, over the mortician's, the funeral home there. But what I found telling is that this is hard for me to talk about, people. Anyway, I could say more, but I'm not going to talk about it anymore, all right? I'm going to show you about David Ferrie.
Thank you very much.
I'm not finished. The poor soul. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to inflict myself on you a little longer. Okay, here. I just need my mouse. Okay, here we go. Gosh. Okay, hold on here. I want to show you his picture because, yeah, there's David, okay? Now, David Ferrie was not just your ordinary person. Jim Garrison understood how important he was. By the way, David Ferrie successfully evaded the FBI. They had a huge, enormous interview with the FBI right after Kennedy was shot. He was right up there in the news. But, you know, he had enough connections, he got away. Then Garrison came along in 1967. By then, you have to understand what we're looking at back in '64, when the Warren Commission came out with all their stuff. Why David Ferrie was spared? Well, Dave was smart. But let me tell you what happened to the rest of them. Hugh Ward, and everybody who's read Me and Lee knows how important Hugh Ward was. It was a man, a pilot working for Guy Bannister, and he was also a partner with Guy Bannister. And Hugh Ward flew Lee. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. He actually flew Lee all over the place when it looked like Lee was actually on a bus going to Houston and then to Mexico border and then to Mexico City. Actually, Lee bought a ticket, and the Warren Commission looked at the ticket, the bus ticket, which was purchased the same day that we got back from Jackson, for anybody who's read the book. All right, middle of the night, just before he got it around midnight or 11 o'clock at night. Bought the ticket, okay, on the 31st of August. We have a wonderful friend in, his book has also been published. Edward Haslam has become my friend after putting me through hell, making sure I was the real deal, okay? And it was worth every bit of it because I'm the witness he was looking for. And Ed Haslam noticed that on the 31st, the day we got back, Mary Sherman's apartment was vandalized, burglarized, and important equipment was removed from that apartment. And she had left the same day for London. They sanitized everything, just like a lot of my records are missing now, okay? Imagine, I worked at Peninsular Chem Research after leaving New Orleans. Why? Oxner was told, oh, wait a minute, she came here, and the reporters were always looking at her, and they wanted to find out, what are you doing now, Judy? Are you going to, what are you going to do for cancer research? You want to cure cancer. And here, all of a sudden, she's not doing anything after New Orleans? That's going to look suspicious. So they got me a job working at Peninsular Chem Research. That's in Gainesville, where I was sent back. And that looked just fine on the record. But again, they don't want me to ever go forward in any science. I'm working there with overtime in this prestigious lab that was founded by University of Florida professors in chemistry. And you have a whole bunch of grad students in chemistry lined up to take any position there. And I got the position, but my official record shows that I have only had one course in chemistry and I got a D in it. Now, if you believe that, you'll also believe the Warren Commission stuff, all right? So that's the kind of thing they do. And of course, I couldn't do anything with D on my record after that, could I? All right, this is David Ferrie. David is a complex character. He was very important. I've told you something about him, but what's very sad is I have to add something here. This is not necessarily the kind of person you wouldn't want to babysit your 10-year-old boy. Actually, he never went after 10-year-olds. That was wrong. He went after 15-year-olds. All right, so he had this terrible problem. He was trying to solve it. It's very hard to make a man look like this, look attractive to others. But, you know, there are good sides to everybody. You'd be surprised. And if you knew his whole history, when you read it, I think you will, as I do, you will understand why he was the man he was. He had been abused by priests, I'll tell you that much. He cared a lot about God, and he felt like he had been betrayed. I was an atheist at the time, but I'd been raised Catholic. I wanted to be a nun. The doctors told me I couldn't have any children. And I thought, I'll become a nun and I'll still do what I can to help mankind. I'll just do what I can. And so when I changed, I became an atheist after reading my dad to make me not become a nun. Gave me all kinds of anti-Catholic literature to read. And wow, I found out about Pope Joan, and I found out about, you know, burning at the stake of various people who, you know, tried to translate the Bible. We could go on and on about all of that. And I became an atheist. I said, well, God, if you existed, why didn't you stop my dad from taking me and then locking me up on the island, which was he did. He had the means to do it. That's in the book. So here I am, an atheist, and here is David Ferrie, who is a homosexual who has, not a pedophile, but he is involved with older teenage boys. And at least by the time they're 18, involved the wrong way. All right, that's for sure. David Ferrie is trying to convince me to become a Catholic again, and from his position, his moral position. Yeah. So that's not so. So we had plenty of arguments. I got to know him very well. He was born the same year as my dad. One time he told me, Judy, the daughter I never had, his brother had like 6 children, was well known, and here his brother wasn't even speaking to him anymore because of his morals arrest that happened in 1961. So let's look at a couple more pictures here of David. The one, David is supposed to be really sick, and the official story is that he was feeling horrible and that he had constant headaches, and he was. The picture up there on the upper left is taken a couple weeks before he actually died. He doesn't look that sick to me, but that's the story that has gone around. Also interesting, and I'd like to tell you, is that David Ferrie is supposed to have died of natural causes. He called Garrison in 67. He said, well, I'm going to back up a little. In 64, how he escaped. Hugh Ward died in a flaming plane crash in May of 64. In June of 64, Guy Bannister was found dead of natural causes, though he's naked. He never went naked. His mistress and his wife said he'd been shot in the back. But Chetta can't tell anybody that. It's natural causes, right? Sure. And then, and then we have Dr. Mary Sherman, who I worked with and who did her best. I believe she also was able to get information about the Kennedy assassination because she came from Chicago. And Lee got all this information, you know, and got it, that happened in Chicago. So Lee is working very hard trying to save the president. Mary Sherman, it is July 21st, 1964. The Warren Commission is coming to New Orleans, and she is front page news because she has been viciously murdered, and her right arm is missing. And after this is over, I will show you photographs of what happened. And this was not an ordinary murder because they never even told the public that her arm was missing. All right? Somehow her arm and her whole rib cage has been burned to a crisp to where the bones aren't even there. That's impossible. She was actually obviously carried there, and they set her mattress on fire. Even the curtains are not even on fire, okay, from this thing that incinerated, completely vaporized her arm, and her hair didn't even catch on fire because this was an electrical burn. It wasn't by a smoldering mattress. The man who reported seeing smoke coming from her house at 4:30 or so in the morning, and from her apartment. His name was Juan Valdez. He's not the donkey guy with the coffee, okay? But he was working for the Trade Mart. All right, he was working for the International Trade Mart. Here we go again. Now, Dave has all this on his mind. He escapes in '64 from this massive murders. I've only named a few of them. I could name more. People I knew were dead, like my old Susie Hanover, vanished. One, apparently only 1 month after I saw her, she disappears because she was in the phone book for 30 years. Same address, same phone number. And right after we leave, and I loved her like she was my own mother, my Susie disappeared and never seen again. We don't know what happened to her. All around me, people dying, most of them murdered. All right. So now we're fast forwarding to 1967. Dave says, now my name is in the paper. Garrison's investigation has been spied on, and they've got it in the papers, and they've got David as getaway pilot for Lee Oswald. Frankly, he was. But it wasn't because Lee Oswald was going to kill somebody. It was to save his life. To save his life. So different. Because David Ferrie, in the end, realized the treason of the generals, the treason of everybody working with Kennedy who wanted him dead. Allen Dulles, he fired. He fired Charles Cabell, the general, who's CIA, and much responsible for Bay of Pigs, whose brother, Earl Cabell, was the mayor of Dallas when Kennedy was shot. They're all working together, all right? Yep. And we've got David Ferrie knowing all these things, and he says, he calls, he was a pilot, he taught so many people how to fly. Half of Garrison's men had been taught to fly, just like Hugh Ward had been taught to fly by David. David had actually taught Lou Ivins and others how to fly there in Garrison's own investigative group. Now, what I find fascinating also is a guy, Bannister. Dave made a joke. He said, Bannister doesn't know who's working for him. He's got these investigators, he's got like eight investigators, and 4 of them were homosexuals and who were friends of David Ferrie, and very good pilots and very good investigators, but and they were CIA and FBI informants working for Bannister. If Bannister had known they were homosexual, he would have had a heart attack, but he didn't. So a lot of people didn't even know David Ferrie was homosexual, as far as that goes. Others did. And now, to the crux of it. So David Ferrie says, you've got to do something. He said, I'm a dead man. My name is now in the paper. They're going to kill me. 5 days later, he's found dead. And Nikki Chetta again says, the coroner says, natural causes. Yeah. If you believe that, I have a bridge. My friends, it all stinks. But for some reason, there has never been a book about David Ferrie. And there's so much more I could tell you. These are pictures I'm showing you here. That's the one upper right there. That's a Bay of Pigs veteran that he's training to fly. Okay, Busnetto. Let's go on here. These are places where he taught. They've taught people to fly, taught them how to be guerrillas in the anti-Castro scenario. These are pictures of Dave at different times. These are not very good pictures of him because that's when he was arrested in '61, and he was just shocked. And he, as you can see, he never has a good hair day. His alopecia, those are wigs. They were dreadful. He made them himself, mainly because he usually had a cap on. So he glued that to his head. At night he'd peel off his eyebrows and throw them aside. But yet when he's found dead, for some reason, he too is found naked, dead in his bed, but for some reason he didn't bother to take off his wig and his eyebrows. That would be the first time, because when he'd first get home, I'd see him come in, and that's the first thing he did, is take off his wig. Something is funny, and I'm telling you, you'll find out that David Ferrie was murdered, and I've got the proof in the book. You've got to share it with others. You've got to tell people about it.
You had a question over here.
Yes, yes.
Just a comment, if you put it in slideshow mode, it'll fill the screen in there.
What?
If you put it in slideshow mode, then...
Yeah, but I don't know how to do it with his projector. And all right, anyway, the apartment, here's what I'll tell you. See that nice looking man at the lower left here? I know we're running out of time here. That nice, cheerful looking man is George Lardner. He's very important because he was with the Washington Post until just recently. And this man wrote all kinds of things about the Kennedy assassination, especially about the film JFK and how horrible the film was. George Lardner's uncle was Ring Lardner. Anybody know who Ring Lardner was? A couple people do. That Ring Lardner said he was a communist. That was back in the late 30s, early 40s. And the last thing that George Lardner wanted is anybody to suspect him of being a communist if he wanted his career in writing to go forward. We have George Lardner always saying that Lee Oswald killed Kennedy and blah, blah, blah. And interestingly enough, this man is there telling, the coroner originally said that David's body, he had died around 11 o'clock or midnight of the night before. Lardner said, oh no, that's not true, because I was with him at midnight. I don't know how many reporters you know that go and interview people at midnight, but he says he was there from midnight to 4 o'clock, and David Ferrie was just fine when he left. Right. Well, there's something written out. Imagine, this man's alive, and I can kind of get in trouble for talking about this, all right? Except if he does try to sue me or something like that. I don't think he'll like what I'm going to show you next. This is David Ferrie's house, and and next to it is the mouse house where we kept everything, the animals and so on. But that house, Dave had the second story, and you see the porch. You could across the street, Life magazine had set up a surveillance camera to take, because he was in the newspapers as possible murderer of Kennedy or something. See, in '67. During these 5 days, they were surveilling his house, and actually more than that, and could see in, and what they could see, I'll show you what they could see from across the street. Let's see. Oh, this is another, I don't have time to show you this. I wish I did. That happens to be my apartment up there, and over there on the upper left hand is the sketch in Lee's address book of the interior of my apartment, where researchers went in 2000. And they found it was the same layout and everything. I could go into detail, but in 2003, when the History Channel came back, Nigel Turner to record it, a London doctor had bought the house, gutted it, moved the door to the middle, put the windows different. Everything inside was different. But fortunately, we had the photos and layout, and people had seen the inside in 2000. So thank God we got it before they ruined that. Dave gave me a wooden nickel. There's a person, Teresa Naughton. All I knew is that somebody named Teresa had written that poem, and it's got coffee stains on it, like everything else on David Ferrie's table. Between coffee and Jell-O and beer and cigarettes, it's about what he lived on. Yeah. And pure guts. He's one of the greatest, wonderful, wonderful pilot. Okay, anyway, he gave me that wooden nickel because I had a very cheapskate husband, and he said, this is one he can't take from you. Okay, and it has the iodide there. You'll see it's methylene iodide. That was a chemical that's used a lot in oil companies, but it's also used to preserve cancer cells and nitrogen, along with glycogens and things that we, like glycerols and glycerides, that we used at the time. And Teresa, I didn't know who Teresa was, but finally, a few years ago, somebody said, yes, there was a lady, Teresa Naughton, who David Ferrie knew. So I think that might be her. All right, we're going to go on here. This is what I wanted you to see. I wish I had a way to show. There's David up there. He's dead in the, as you see, not wearing anything. I think he probably had a struggle and he took his clothes off because they were ripped or something. Because it's February 22nd, and it was cold in New Orleans on February 22nd. That's the last thing he'd be doing. And of course, he has his wig on and everything. He was my friend. Now, I want you to look at the picture at the top right. It's hard to see. I wish I had it a little bigger here to show you.
I might be able to get it
Let me see if
bigger
I can
for
get it a
you.
little bit bigger here. Yeah, if you can make that picture bigger, that would be great. Anyway, at the upper right hand there, I'm afraid if you do too much. All right, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, because I can't see well enough to do it. Oh, great. All right, right here. Remember I was telling you about the newspaper reporter George Lardner. We're almost finished. George Lardner said, yes, I was in David Ferrie's apartment that night, and so we had Gurvich, this guy Gurvich, working for Garrison. He didn't even like Garrison. The perfect person to interview George Lardner, because anything he said it's not going to be a very good interview, you know, he would make sure. All right, look. He said, I was sitting in a chair here and over here. Right here's the couch. That's where David Ferrie was sitting. And he said, but did you see any medicine in his room? You know, did you see any medicine? He said, yes. Over here, I remember on the piano, I saw a bottle of medicine on the piano. Right, see that up there? He saw a bottle of medicine on the piano. Well, was it full? He said, I don't know, because I couldn't see. The label was in the way. George Lardner was never inside David Ferrie's apartment. Here is another view of David Ferrie's apartment. Here's the chair. And what you can't see, the surveillance could only go that high. It couldn't go down below. Life magazine surveillance could see this much. What they couldn't see is the coffee table between David Ferrie, okay, and George Lardner sitting here that has at least 12 to 15 bottles of medicine on it. And he was supposed to be there for 4 hours, and all he can remember is the bottle on the piano. Raise your hand if you believe that George Lardner was actually inside David Ferrie's apartment. Well, he simply wasn't. He lied. And you'll see more of that. I don't know why, after all these years, people haven't seen this or picked this up. But again, I knew what Dave had and where he kept his stuff, so it was easier for me to figure that out. All right? And that's all I'm going to show you here. I urge you to understand why the Kennedy assassination is so important. This is when we lost our faith in our government. This is when we lost our legitimate government. And the people who came in and took over, literally, a coup d'etat, which means it was an illegitimate government. If we were able, we should say they should all resign and we start over. Unfortunately, we can't do that. What we can do is try and clean it up from the bottom. You're not going to clean up this kind of corruption from the top. And I thank you for listening to me. I pray that you will tell others and that you'll get the books and see for yourself. And if there's anybody here who can't afford a book, let me know. I'll pay for it myself. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Where's the bathroom?
Q&A? We still go through that door. It's in there. Okay. And we have some time for some questions. And, you know, if people want books, they have our signed books. And then we've got to be out of here by 10 o'clock or they charge us another $100. So, question?
Okay, what's the relationship between Oswald and Ruby?
And who?
Ruby? Jack Ruby.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you. Of course, it's in the book, too.
Yeah.
Okay. Lee Oswald knew Jack Ruby from the time he was a kid. This is because his mother, Lee Oswald's mother...
Is there a Karen Mills here?
Okay.
Good. Nice to see you.
Okay, anyway, Jack Ruby wasn't just an ordinary guy. He was a bagman, and he'd been sent to Dallas and was a police fixer also, besides running his nightclubs and things like that. And you have many records of his traveling all the time to New Orleans. Carlos Marcello had parties for his people, his henchmen. And that included, of course, their families, just like you see on The Godfather, if you've seen any of those movies. And Jack Ruby said right in front of me, I had known Lee since he was a little boy, going to these parties. His mother, Lee Oswald's mother, Marguerite, actually dated Carlos Marcello's own driver. She was good friends with Clem Surt, H-S-E-H-R-T. Clem Surt was a mafia attorney for Marcello, And he's the one that put up the bail for Lee Oswald to get out of jail when he was arrested on August 9th. On August 10th, he put up the bail. And, of course, Lee didn't want that. Originally, he had somebody else, but his uncle happened to, at the time to be out away, and his aunt, who would have put up the bail for him, was in the hospital with an eye operation. So he had to use this mafia attorney to get him out. So the connections between Lee and the mafia and Lee and the CIA, this was very handy. CIA was working with the mafia to try to kill Castro. So Lee was a perfect bridge between the two. Have I answered your question adequately?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
You know, I have a general comment here.
Yes.
First of all, you know, I've studied a lot of this stuff for a long time, and I do not personally buy the story that the CIA was ever trying to stop Castro. They actually set him in power, and what they were doing was destroying. But let me speak now. Okay, what they were doing was destroying opposition to Castro and guarantees.
Well, let's put it this way. At least the CIA says that they were out to get Castro, and she gave us about 35 different examples. And I personally know, the CIA wanted to get rid of Castro because, and I think it's very important, by getting rid of Castro, they could take over the island again. They were very embarrassed by losing everything and letting Castro get in the kind of power he got. Are there any more questions? We can talk about that later if we get a chance. Yes.
Yes, I was wondering, what do you see as the future in the United States if we continue on the same NSA, Homeland Security, endless war?
You've answered your own question.
Huh?
You've answered your own question. This is a snowballing effect. We look at the lessons of history, and if we don't learn, we'll end up the same way. You see, the frog sits in the water, and the water gets hotter and hotter. Little by little, the frog boils to death and doesn't even realize it. 97% of the people at all times through history, it's only been 3% of the people who have effected change. The rest are followers.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. We are a herd mentality people by nature. We wait for someone else. How many people do you see here sitting up here with me telling you what happened in New Orleans? I can tell you there are 6 or 7 people who should be here say, I saw her with Lee, I know it's true, and they are afraid. And by the way, they kill us off, so that makes it easier. What's happening in the United States is dreadful. The United States is old. You're not going to believe this, but we now have the oldest continuous government in the world. You may not have known that.
Right.
Absolutely. Now, others have come along. They've had drastic changes, even Europe, Great Britain and everything. The average age of a country is about 200 years. We've actually surpassed that. Because what happens? Things get entrenched, corruption occurs, and special interests take over. This happens again and again, and you're feeling it now, and it's not going to get better. If you try to, because of technology, if you try to resist, they're going to do rubber bullets, they're going to do tear gas, and all the rest. Or they'll bring in people who will break windows so they can arrest all of you. How can you combat this? We have social media. As long as we keep the internet free and talk to each other, there are ways, start bartering with each other, start trying to help each other, go to doctors that will help you. Network, do whatever you can, but whatever you do, keep your nose out of, like, signing petitions and things that will put you on lists. Make friends with each other. Be neighbors again. They try to break you up. They try to break up families. They don't want you to communicate. All right? And try to get back your Sunday day of rest. Try as hard as you can to support any employer here who gives you the proper pay and all that. If you go to Walmart, well, shame on you. Okay? Any other questions? Yes. No. Yes. Yes.
Lee was also falsely accused of killing Officer J.D.
Yes, and I'd like to say one thing about that. By the way, we're going to be in Dallas on November 22, 23, and 24 at the JFK Assassination Conference. It's free admission. Come here, everybody. We've got some really great speakers. Why am I mentioning this? Because we're going to go to the J.D. Tippit sign. We have already protested that they have a sign there that says that J.D. Tippit was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald. And we've written a protest, and they said, well, the Dallas committee said this, we're not involved. No, they are. The Texas Historical Association put up the sign and everything. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get national petitions started. We already tried the individual petitions. So we got their answers. We know how they're going to respond. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to write to every historical association in every single state. And we're going to say, this historical association has said that Lee Harvey Oswald killed J.D. Tippit when we have Butch Burroughs, who's still alive, and other witnesses who, when Tippit was killed, according to the Warren Commission, at 1:15, Lee Oswald was buying popcorn from Butch Burroughs and was seen by another person who sat next to him in the balcony. And when the movie started at 1:20, all right, Lee Oswald, Tippit was shot 0.6 of a mile away from the theater. Now, unless he can bilocate, it couldn't have been him.
You have photographs of Tippit?
This lady is putting this conference on by herself.
God bless you all. The donations keep us going. So, I mean, thank you so much. Yes.
About Tippit, nobody seems, as far as I know, I've read quite a few books, nobody seems to have put forth the theory as to why Tippit was killed.
Okay, well,
Tippit was out of his territory. He was not.
Yeah, but he was off and out of his territory.
He pulled up in front of Lee's house and
yeah.
honked, and then drove up the street. And what I've been telling people for 20 years, and I haven't heard anybody else say this. If you look at pictures of Officer Tippit, he looks just like John.
No, I'll tell you what, we can't go there. This is another red herring. Let me explain. That is another red herring. Anything to get people to talk about anything but the fact that there were really two guys who shot at Officer Tippit. And we've got witnesses for that.
Why?
No, wait a minute. But we had an open coffin viewing for Officer Tippit. And they were there at the funeral, and he was interred. The body can't have been substituted. I'm sorry, I've looked into it.
It was a closed casket.
What?
It was closed casket.
No, it was open casket during the wake. Not at the funeral, during the wake. I know, I've talked to these people. And it's just, it's just the way it was. Now, I don't know about at the funeral, but I know because we even have a statement from the widow. So.
Because I always felt that if they used Tippit as to recreate
I know we have that theory, but
then who's buried at Arlington Cemetery?
I don't think anybody's buried there.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very possible that his body was dumped at sea. Now think about this. When John F. Kennedy Jr. went down, these are Catholic people, Catholics, and I mean as raised as Catholic, and I care very much about my traditions in a Hungarian family. We don't like being cremated, and we don't like being buried at sea. Not when they brought the bodies out, but you know what? The bodies would have shown evidence of an explosion. The bodies were buried at sea. They cannot be found. Now that's how terrified the Kennedy family is of this whole thing.
Which body?
This is John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife, and his wife's friend, and we believe an instructor was on the plane as well. And we have the earliest reports, and I got a newspaper report, says they saw the plane exploding in the sky before it ever landed in the water. But you don't hear that anymore. Any more questions? Yes.
So who assigned Lee to infiltrate the group in New Orleans? You said he was
Okay, yeah. Lee actually was sent to watch over the project that we were working on, that it wouldn't get in the wrong hands. That's what he told me. And that was just one of his, they had him doing a lot of stuff. I mean, he was being paid by the CIA and the FBI. And so he was a very busy man. And that's what's so interesting. Look, people, he's doing FPCC stuff. He's getting on TV. He's handing out stuff. All of a sudden, after he's arrested and everything, it quits. Well, it quits because we ejected the prisoner up there waiting. He's waiting, and he has to be very quiet now because the last thing he wanted to do is link Lee Oswald, who is pro-Castro and all this, and having people follow him all the way to Mexico City, So he's very quiet. He does nothing for a month. And then, of course, the prisoner died. Bingo, he's gone. And so, you know, just look at all the evidence, the circumstantial evidence. We've got so much more evidence now of who was involved at every point of the way. Any more questions? Yes?
Yeah, there's a book out that I read excerpts from. I don't know which one, but in it they said that Lee Harvey Oswald used to start fights and beat his wife.
With whose wife?
Used her. And I want to know.
With Marina.
Yeah.
Oh, how many of you know anything about Russian women? Okay, well, living overseas has been an eye-opener for me. I'll just put it this way. Russian women stick up for themselves. There are many things I could say. I want to tell you one thing. Marina Oswald today is not the Marina Oswald back then. She raised two good daughters. The book, Me and Lee, is dedicated to Marina Oswald and to her daughters and their children. Because that was what Lee wanted me to do. And that's what I've done. And the silence of Marina Oswald today, I'm going to respect that. She has not criticized the book with one word. So, as to what happened back then, there's plenty in the book that will tell you Lee's side of it anyway. And there are things I haven't mentioned either, which I think should not be revealed. But a man who treated me with the respect he did and everything like that, who hardly ever lost his temper. And the people in Dallas, you know, the police, they said, this man doesn't lose his cool. I just have to tell you that Russian women can really set somebody off sometimes. That's a fact. I have a friend in Sweden who was married to one, and she hit him so much he finally hit her back. Now, that's not Marina. I'm just saying that happens. And there were a lot of things that Lee wanted to protect her. He was criticized, said, oh, that man won't let her learn English. Lee told me he did not let Marina learn English so that she could never be accused of being a spy.
Oh.
See? So you've got to see the other side of things. Okay?
Speaking of seeing, what are these pictures here?
Yes, and that's fundraising. They're kind of expensive because these are limited edition lithos. I sell them for $150 online, but they're like, right now they're $50 for anyone who wants one here. That helps get me to the next place. I mean, the plane tickets are coming in. I'll tell you, I only have $475 left to raise for 80 days. That doesn't count meals, but I'm just saying. One place I stopped, I couldn't believe it. She was really sweet and all that, but she didn't buy one meal. So, you know, I guess I can lose weight that way. Anyway, so I think we have time for a couple more questions. Yes?
Just had a general question about
George
Herbert Walker Bush's involvement.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. Remember, these people knew each other, were involved with each other, and we still have people like Dick Cheney, who's working for Nixon, for heaven's sakes. And anybody who thinks that Nixon wasn't involved hasn't heard about the Bay of Pigs thing.
Right.
So there's just an awful lot. I see that you know a great deal. I'm grateful for that. People never give up. Truth does win out if someone is just going to be a winner about it. Got to not be afraid. Say your piece. The people who dismiss it are ignorant. Feel sorry for them. Yes?
Do you have any opinion about the Ebola crisis right now?
About what?
Ebola.
Yes, I do. I can help you a little so that you'll be less afraid. How many of you know anything about ultraviolet light? Every single Ebola patient is being bathed, all the rooms around them, with ultraviolet. Ultraviolet, just like regular sunlight, unless you want to stand outside all day long and get sunburned, in your house. If you're afraid of anything in your house, they put it in big buildings because they had Legionnaire disease and they got rid of it they put ultraviolet lamps in you can't see them, but it's in the duct systems. And the air that goes across is being bathed in ultraviolet light lamps, see, and it kills any viruses. I urge you, if there's Ebola in your neighborhood or anything like that, you know, first of all, get yourself a bottle of water. That's just decent. You know, just do that. Second, if you have any big gaps in your doors or something, or the wind comes whooshing through, fix it. Don't completely seal your house. That's crazy because you can poison yourself with your own carbon dioxide. But you know, you use some sense. If you have a hallway that leads to your outdoor, it's good if you put a piece of plastic there so that you have some kind of block. But inside where you live the most, you can expose a quarter of an hour this direction, this 4 directions, so in 1 hour each room, and do that like once a week. And protect your paintings or your special things, because it can bleach it out a little. It will kill viruses. And they're not even telling you this. They should.
We're talking about 254 nanometers.
I'm talking about full spectrum ultraviolet, not the little light bulb. You need the full spectrum.
You're talking about not a black light.
I'm talking about black light.
Well, okay. The black lights are 360 nanometers, and that doesn't kill
No,
anything.
you have to. Yeah.
You're talking about the quartz tubes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm talking about quartz. You actually can get them at Walmart. Actually can. So that's one reason to go to Walmart. After all, dang.
That's your feeling
All right.
about the
But he's
LBJ.
exactly right. And that's what you're after. You don't want to go after filament type. Now,
What's LBJ's role in that whole thing?
well, I just want to finish up on Ebola.
Okay.
One of the most disastrous things is we know that over there that we could have had troops not sent there at all, that exposing our kids one more time to more danger, and they're going to come home again. Here's the problem. Ebola, you may be cured of it. It seems that way, but I'm going to give you an example of the problem we have with viruses. And by the way, most of you are carrying the SV40 monkey virus that causes cancer in your body now. And you will get cancer from it if you don't keep your immune system strong. Why does a weak immune system bring on cancer and bring up the virus and make it active? Let me explain. If a body is going to die, a virus will wake up. It will sense. It's built to sense. It's not alive but it's in you. It wakes up when it thinks the body's going to die because it needs to go to another host. You see what I'm saying? So if you're under a lot of stress and your immune system is weak, it comes alive, and that's how you get cancer, because it's going to shed to other hosts. That's how it happens. So keep yourself in good condition. Get as much rest as you can. You take your vitamin C. By the way, one of the things you can do is if you are diagnosed with cancer, men, if it's prostate cancer, get the prostate out and don't even think any further. Get it out. Go ahead and get a biopsy. You're going to shed cells, and that can go all over your body from a biopsy. Get it out. Just get it out. I don't care if you have to wear diapers the rest of your life. It's better than my former husband. I tried to tell him. We found out he had prostate cancer. He said, "Oh, I can't take. This is hard, because I feel sorry for him." He said, "I'm not going to take my prostate out because I may not have sexual function, you know."
Big deal.
In the end, after going through radiation, going through surgery, too late, okay, going through chemotherapy, and shaking like a leaf, they gave him female hormones, which do not work, and he had no, of course, function anyway, and he died. If he'd taken it out, he would be alive today, and I would have less money for my Social Security check. But I tried to save him. So use your common sense, take good care of yourself, avoid GMOs, avoid the junky stuff. All right, and then there was another question now. What was it again?
LBJ.
Oh, about what's LBJ involved? Let me put it this way. You don't have to have pulled the trigger to be involved.
That's right.
And all these people who worry about who shot Kennedy. Was it James Files? No, he was not telling. I don't care who shot. You know why I don't? I know it wasn't Lee. Number one, it wasn't Lee. And who I do know is that somebody covered it up. Somebody had the power to move the body out of Dallas. Somebody had the power to say it was Lee Oswald and do all that framing and so on. And that wasn't the mafia. But there's one man who really profited more than anybody else. And On the 22nd of November, we had a congressional hearing going on where Lyndon Johnson was implicated for taking bribes that would have put him in prison. They didn't have another meeting when he became president. He had his choice between allowing Kennedy to be killed and going to prison if he didn't allow him to be killed. So what do you think? See? So my friends, I'm telling you, we've got a country that deserves your wonderful people. Americans are good people. But you've been divided, you've been taught to hate each other. It's always, you know, this, or even to hate police. And let me tell you, sometimes that you should, because it's some of the terrible things they're doing. It's like they're hiring thugs now to be police. Things have changed. We have a police state, practically. I can still speak now. I don't know how, 10 years from now, I don't know whether I could. How you're going to save your country, you've got to teach your kids somehow. Clean it up from the bottom. You can't elect good sheriffs. You can't elect a better school board. Do it in your own hometown. God didn't make you the savior of the world, but He can make you wherever your path goes. That's where you're responsible. Be responsible for what you can do right on your own home turf. That's your path. I love you.